Welcome to the Tuning In podcast, where we talk alignment, intuition, and our internal guidance system. We cover woo-woo topics in an approachable and practical way. I'm your host, Dana Evans of Alignful.com. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Tuning In podcast. This is Dana Evans, your host, and I am recording in a very unprofessional way right now. I am using a voice memo app on my phone and using my headphones, my regular Bose headphones, to record. And I hope it's going to sound okay. I'm on a trip. I'm in Buena Vista, and oh my gosh, it's so funny, but I have been nudged to not be using the internet because things aren't working. So we're at this pretty cute Airbnb, but the internet is horribly slow. John is working, so he's needing it, and I can't do much, and anything I do is very slow. So I was trying to record on my computer, but the website that I need to record and to upload on my computer, it's all too slow. So that means I am improvising and using my phone and regular headphones. Okay. So I had a whole different topic that I was going to talk about this week, but upon arriving here in Buena Vista, I was presented with a regular struggle that I have, and it showed up again, and I'll talk about it more in this episode. And so I was actually voice memoing my friend and magical morning partner Candace today. And I was on a little walk, and I'm like, man, this issue I have is here again, and I'm supposed to record a podcast, but instead of going for a walk, I'm going to get a cup of tea, just trying to shift my energy because I don't have anything, even though I have things to say about the topic that I wanted to talk about, which will be an episode. It's all about the rules that we create for ourselves consciously and unconsciously, and what it means to start tuning into your inner voice and how that often breaks the rules. Right? It's a fun topic. I'm really excited to talk about it, but not now, not today. And frankly, I'm actually feeling quite a bit better than I was earlier, but here we are. And the topic is settling into rest mode. And it's so interesting because this month, in this membership that I'm in, the Vortex with Gala Darling, the monthly topic is receiving and allowing and rest. In my School of Love group program, we just had a call on Thursday, and we were talking about all about the feminine energy of receiving and leaning back and allowing, right? And I'm reading this book called You Are a Goddess that talks a lot about that. And I actually believe myself to be very good at resting. I've learned and embodied a lot of this through my understanding of what it means to be a projector and to really tune in and listen to my energy. So day to day, I feel very good at resting. I feel like I can balance my day-to-day very well between the active doing. So I kind of describe this as I'm either out there using up my energy, or I'm on the charging station. And when I'm on the charging station, I'm resting, I'm reading, watching a show. I'm relatively good at lounging. I'm doing inner work, tapping, meditation, whatever. And then that helps to charge my battery, and then I go out into the world, and it's like I sprinkle my fairy dust everywhere, and that depletes me, and then I need to plug in again. So that's kind of my day-to-day life. But something that I've noticed that happens to me when I go on a trip or some sort of vacation is I really struggle to rest. or to feel at ease is probably a better way, because I can be resting while I'm on a trip and still not feel at ease internally. And it's interesting because this week that I'm recording this is actually the integration week for Insight, my one-to-one coaching program, which means I do not host client calls at all. So we have an off week from client calls, and I reduce my Voxer. So I'm not on Voxer at all Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. The whole point, literally, of that week is to give me space to not be on and active, right? Because if you listen to last week's episode 108, I talked about how I ended up needing to take 2 months off because I was always on and supporting and coaching and outward with people, because I never took time away from it. Even if I traveled or went on vacation, I still hosted calls, I still did coaching, and I was still on Voxer. So one of the things I've implemented since then is every month there's an integration week where I'm not hosting calls and I'm either not on Voxer or on it minimally. So that's this week. And it worked out so beautifully that John had a hankering to get away and to go to Buena Vista, even though he's still working. And we found a place kind of last minute, and I'm like, perfect, that's my integration week. I don't have anything. I can just chill. So we got here on Saturday evening. Saturday and Sunday were fine because it's the weekend. And then Monday, the day I'm recording this, I just found myself feeling unsettled, and I cleaned up the place. I did some reading. I unpacked a little bit. I couldn't really do anything on the internet. I was scrolling through Instagram, but this whole time I just felt this inner buzzing, unsettled, uneasy, and I was trying to relax, right? I was trying to read. I was trying to chill, and it just didn't feel good. And that's what got me to the point where I was on a walk, voice memoing Candace, saying, I don't know what is going on. Here I am again. I'm in this beautiful place. I literally don't have to do anything because this is my scheduled off week. And it's the perfect time for me to do whatever the heck I want, chill out. And I said, and it's crazy because the internet is very challenging here. And so the world is telling me don't do things. I need to record a podcast, but this is blah, 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 right? I'm being told just to chill out. And here I am, and I can't. So I'm going on a walk. I'm going to get a cup of tea and try to settle. Right? Exhale. And, she asked me some questions, and we talked about it a little bit more. And one thing I noticed, and maybe you can relate to this as well, is that it is challenging. So John is working here and quite busy, a little bit stressed. Okay. It's not like this place is huge. And so I kind of find it's a little challenging when your partner, the person you're at a vacation with, is working and then you're not. And it's not like he's expecting me to be working. It's the energy. So it's I'm sitting here relaxing. He's like, "Duh, duh, 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 duh," and it just feels like this, my body's holding. It's holding. That's what I feel. And so after I talked to Candace, I got my tea and I just sat there. The coffee shop was empty and I just sat there and I was like, oh. And I did my own practices. And one of them was, what am I feeling? And it really felt like this tightness, this congestion, this cloggy thickness in my chest. And so much so that it kind of felt difficult to take full, complete breaths. I'm like, oh, it's so interesting, this holding. It's a holding. It's a holding. And so I walk back, it's beautiful out, but I walk back and head into the house and I'm just like, man, it kind of helped, but not really. And then I was going to go record my podcast to talk about this. And then John said, oh, I have a call at noon. And it was like 11:55 that I returned home. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm still not recording my podcast. And he's going to be on the call. I need to be off the internet so that he can have all the internet powers. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'll leave again. Like, message received. This is the thing with this, as you start to tune into life and play with life in this way, the messages are always coming, right? You're always receiving. And this was another message of like, no, it's not time to record the podcast. Like, get out, like, go. So I went on a walk into town and I was like, all right, well, that's fine. I'll go check out. There's a couple cute shops in town. So I went into one shop and oh my gosh, I just had such a luxurious time browsing. And I don't know if you ever think about this, but I often, if I'm going shopping I don't love shopping, but if I'm going into a store, I notice that one of the ways I operate is like, okay, go in, do a scan, see if there's anything I like. If not, then leave. If there is, then get it. But there's always this energy of gotta get on to the next thing. There's like a hurried energy, and it happens not always, but sometimes I catch myself like, oh, I feel like I need to get on to the next thing, even if there's not a next thing. So walking into this store, it's so cute. I love this store. I go there every time I can. And it's very small, but I just wandered and I looked and I felt into all these items. And I don't know how long I spent there, probably like a half an hour, just enjoying the beauty. And I did end up buying a few things. And I left and I felt like, wow, I don't allow this very much. This slow, leisurely, exploratory pace of wander. So that helps settle me a little bit. And then I go into another store and I move from that store, it's connected to another store, and I walk in and I ask the guy at the counter, I said, oh, are you guys connected, these two stores, the same owners? He said, well, actually, yes, my wife and I own these. And I ended up in conversation with this man. He's so nice. And he and his wife retired in Buena Vista and opened these gorgeous little shops and an inn that's above the shops. And we just had this leisurely conversation, right? Something that, the feeling where if someone is like becomes chatty with you, you're like, okay, kind of, let's wrap it up. Got things to do. And I just enjoyed. I was like, oh, he was very friendly. His story was interesting. I shared about, how we want to live here. And it was so lovely. And I walked out of that shop and I was like, oh, I am giving myself space. And I did another little body check and I was like, okay, like I still feel a little bit of this unease, but it feels better. And part of it was because I'm moving, right? I'm on a walk and looking around, but it wasn't like moving to run away from the feeling. It was actually moving to experience the feeling, right? To give myself presence. And I wasn't able to find or access the presence while at home at the Airbnb. And so it's like I needed to get out of that environment and into a different environment so I could feel my system start to settle. And settling in this instance meant for me to slow down a little bit. Slow down in my walk. I didn't power walk. I love power walking. I love power walking. My mom taught me to walk fast. I could never keep up with her as a kid. She was always like a fast walker. And as a kid, I never could keep up with her. And she's slowed down quite a bit too in her walking. But I just leisurely walked into town and then leisurely allowed myself to explore the shops and leisurely have conversations. Whereas when I was at the Airbnb, I was like, okay, I'm going to clean up the house and then I'm going to do this and then I'm going to do, and it was like, there's more of a hurried, rushed energy. And if you think about it, you can imagine, and maybe you felt this in your own life, how that external manifestation of the rush is telling you a lot about what's going on internally, right? I didn't feel at ease internally. And so what was happening externally was like this vibration, like go, outward, go, go. So it happens that way, but also if you're intentionally slowing down, that can tell your inner state. So, right, if you're intentionally slowing down externally, that can inform your inner state that it's safe and okay to slow. I actually think that's why, I don't know this, but I used to teach yoga, and I feel like maybe that's part of why yoga is so helpful for people, is because in general, by default, our lives are very fast and rushed. And it's like you step into that yoga class, and a lot of times, like the movements are slower and they're more mindful. Now, of course, they've created things like vinyasa, which keep people from actually slowing down. Sorry, not to jab vinyasa yoga, but they've created fast-paced yogas, modern postural yoga that keeps up with the pace of the mind. But when you find yourself in some of those slower classes, it doesn't mean they're less effective, but the mind often can get very annoyed and agitated because the body is slowing down and the mind's like, wait, you don't want to slow down. But as that inner state slows down, it helps the mind get on board, which is why you leave yoga often and you're like, oh, right? I've arrived. My mind and body feel like they're on a slower wavelength, and that feels good. You're more present. You see things around you. You're more sensitive to your body, to your inner experiences, to your physical form. And I guess, I guess that's maybe what I kind of did unintentionally when I left the house to go walk and explore. And then I picked up some lunch and came home and was definitely feeling better. At this point, it was around, 1:30, I think. And then, so funny, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to record my podcast. And then our internet was so bad, and John had another important video call that he had to be on. And he's like, I can't do it. I can't have video in here. So we started looking at, okay, what can we do? How can he be on this video call, which was going to be at 2:30? So that kind of sucked me in, and I was supporting him with that. And he found the local library, and I called them, and they had a room available, like a cubby room. And so we reserved that, and then it was a little bit further. So that was for 2:15. So then at 2:00, we get in the car, and I drive him to the library, drop him off. In the meantime, leave my computer with him so I can upload some things for clients that I wasn't able to do. And I'm like, okay, now I have no computer. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go get a beer. Like, that sounds good. Which, fine, right, to go get a beer. But I was definitely present to the fact that I wanted the beer to really help me relax. So it was a coping technique. So the library happened to be right next to the cute brewery. So I walk over to the brewery. I had checked on Yelp. It said open. I go pull the handle. Nope, they're closed today. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, message received. I get in the car. So now I just have my Kindle and my phone. Drive back to the house. And I'm like, all right. I'm still not fully settled. I'm getting there. What now? And I remembered that the Vortex, the membership that I'm in this month, is all about receiving and allowing, and that they have a tapping about allowing rest into your life. So I painstakingly pull that up because it was slow, right? It's like the Wi-Fi slow, right? Things kind of getting in the way, needing to walk, not having my computer. It's like everything's reminding me to slow down and come back to my body. So I pull up the meditation, I take a breath, and I start with the tapping. Oh gosh, I love tapping, you guys. I love it so much. And I follow the tapping, and I yawn, and I have tears, right, coming down my eyes. This is release, right? Tears, releasing of resistance, yawning, moving energy. I'm like, oh, okay, that feels nice. And it was like an 8-minute tapping. So after that, I pause. I'm like, man, I feel like I could drop into a meditation. I'm like, wait, they have a meditation too for receiving and resting and allowing. So I pull that up. I was like 15 minutes. I lay down, take a breath, and play the track. And I kid you not, like 1 minute into the track, boom, the dam breaks and I cry. And it wasn't a long cry, but it was just this burst. And I caught some of the understanding, some of the stories that I was sitting with, that I was holding, that were blocking me from feeling like I could just be. I'm literally here to be. Like, that is planned. That is the intention. Like, that is what this whole setup is I can just hang here. And I wasn't allowing it. I wasn't able to allow it. And all of a sudden, the crying. Oh, my dear friends, if you find yourself with a desire to cry or a yawn, as I just did, I beg of you, allow it. Don't push it down. Let it bubble up. It is a releasing of resistance. It is clearing the pathway so that you can flow again. And then that crying allowed me to drop deeper into that state. And yes, the mind was like a little active still, but it allowed me to drop and settle. And I did the meditation, and then I opened my eyes. And do you ever notice this? Often it's after meditation or yoga or tapping or something. I opened my eyes and I could just see the glitter air. That's what I call it. Glitter air. So it's just like I could see sparkles in the air. And I felt, oh, okay, this is good. And then here's the interesting thing, and this is worth noting because it's such a fine line. And I work with this with my insight clients all the time. It's like we have tools and we have a toolbox. And when we're feeling uneasy, when we're feeling disconnected, when we're feeling whatever, discomfort within, it's great to use the tools. But notice if the mind gets obsessed with using the tools and wants to fix its way out of how it's feeling. So as powerful as tapping and meditation and breathing exercises, and I have some very specific tools that I give my clients for working with the emotion and finding it. And, exercising, as powerful as all these are to support you when you're feeling, when either you can't settle or you're feeling a certain way, it's also important to notice if the mind is trying to use these to fix or to solve or to get rid of what you're feeling. Because that assumes there's something wrong with what's present. And then the mind takes its frantic antics and puts them onto fixing it so you don't have to feel that way again or still. So it's a very fine line. So I did notice that after I came out of that, I felt more still, but the feeling wasn't completely gone, but I felt more settled. I noticed my mind's like, well, let's do another tapping. Maybe we should do another meditation. Maybe we should watch this here. And it started to get a little grippy. And I was like, okay, no, I think I got what I needed. And what I needed, and this is what we often need when we're feeling this discomfort, like how I described the feeling was I felt like I was oh, what's a good metaphor? It basically felt like the engine had been going and I stopped the engine, but it was like the windshield wipers didn't get the memo, right? Or the belt was still turning. And so my body was physically chill and stopped, but things were still bouncing around internally. So it's like I was still being propelled forward even though I had stopped moving. I'm sure there's a wonderful metaphor for that I don't have access to right now. So forgive me. So, that's how I was feeling. And I was kind of doing around it, right? It wasn't until I came home, I did the tapping, which was great, but it wasn't truly until I lied down and closed my eyes that I was able to release. And that's so often what we need is just that pause, that moment inward, that recognition of your body of like, we're here together and it's okay. And I'm here to feel and to experience, but not necessarily to fix. And just to feel that from the body can be such a release. Because for me, I honestly wasn't even consciously aware that I wanted to get rid of the feeling, that I wanted to do my way out of it when I'm here to not do. And once I laid down, and then I felt this overwhelming feeling of tiredness and exhaustion. I was like, whoa, because I've been fighting this all day or assuming something's wrong. And after I had a little more conversation with Candace after I picked up lunch, and I said, I think right now what I just need to allow for and remind myself of, because she was telling me that it's very easy for her, and she's like way busier than I am in just general life. Like she does a ton more. She's just has a lot more going on. She's like, yeah, but when it's time to rest, I'm off. She's like, I have no problem going on and off, switching between work and rest. And I said, that's really interesting. And I think that's such a reminder is I'm assuming that I should, right? Just be able to turn off. And how come I can't just rest? So, right, I'm operating this whole time as if there's something wrong with me and as if there's a problem that I just feel uneasy today. And that I'm like doing vacation wrong, right? You can see all these stories come up. And I hope as I'm sharing all this with you, you can self-reflect on where this shows up in parts of your life. And I said to her, I said, you know what I think I just need to accept and allow right now is the fact that I just need a runway to ease in and out of vacation. Because she can also go from rest to work. Like I don't understand. How? Like she can like take time and like go to dinner with friends. The number of times she's told me this, she'll like go to dinner with people and then come home and like do work. I'm like, I don't, what? Once I turn off, usually I'm like off. And then I can be like with vacation. It's like, I need a runway to ease out. And then I can be on a vacation. And then I need a runway to ease back into work. Because once the motors are off, that's what I told her. I was like, once my engine's off, then it's hard to restart the engine. So I have an on and off mode, but it just takes a little more time for me to transition. So when I get back on Thursday, I'm not just going to dive into work. Like I'll do a few things that need to be done, but it's like, yeah, I'm probably out until next week. And, make fun of me or whatever, but I know this about myself, but I needed that reminder today of it's not that something's wrong, right? It's not that I'm not good enough at my own work. Because Candace, she said to me, it was actually really funny. She's like, yeah, for someone who understands the value of rest, isn't it interesting how difficult it is for you to completely turn off? And I'm like, yeah. But I can completely turn off. It's just, I am aware that for now at least, I just need a little more space to transition, right? And I think that's such the value when it comes to understanding ourselves and tuning in because we're all unique and different, right? If I'm comparing myself to Candace, it's going to seem like something's wrong with me because how come I can't just turn off and rest, right? But who is to say that that is the right way? And also who's to say that sometimes I do that actually better during the week, right? During regular life, I can turn on and off a lot easier. It's these bigger transitions that my body needs more time to get on board or off board. And so as we learn about ourselves, right? As we tune into our own energy, as we inquire and investigate, and as we give ourselves space to sit with whatever is present, we also get insights, right? We also get information. We get to hear from our inner voice and the universe, right? I feel as though I'm willing to follow the nudges of my inner voice in the universe. And today was like, you keep trying to like get to the thing because you feel like this is about, you have to record the podcast now that you know the topic. But really, this is about giving you the space today to transition. I just made that connection. That's why there are all these holdups, these slowdowns, because it was like, let me just give you the space to transition so it will feel good and aligned to do the thing. Such a good reminder. And that's life. It's following those nudges, right? Insights. That's why I call my one-to-one coaching program the Insight Coaching Program. Tuning in. That's why the podcast is Tuning In Podcast. This is the work. This is the work I do with clients. Yes, I am taking how many? I think 3 to start in March. I'm onboarding 2 or 3. I don't remember. So if this is something you're interested in, the self-inquiry, right? Really tapping into the shedding, letting yourself feel into things, release the buildup of emotion so it can clear the pathway. I mean, it's the most beautiful work. It's the most beautiful work I've ever done is working with the one-to-one clients of Insight Coaching, working with people's inner voices. But I share this with you always, and I feel like I'm quite open on this podcast, is that here's how this works in real life, right? It's not always easy. Everyone's like, yeah, you were so excited to go on vacation. Yeah, but there's a dark side of that, right? Like there's a shadow side of I'm on vacation and I can't fucking relax. And that's creating stress because now I think I'm being bad at vacation and this is my only time to have vacation. And if I can't relax now, then when are we going to get to relax, right? Like you can see these stories build. So where can we give ourselves space and grace and allow the insights to come forward? Tune in to the universal and the messages from your inner voice and start to flow with life even when you're feeling resistance, even when you're feeling blocked, even when you're not feeling at ease. And that's why I always share these candid stories with you. I mean, I guess this podcast is now just like a storytelling podcast, right? Because it's how do we use this in our everyday lives? Doesn't matter if you're me or if you're the CEO of a big company or if you're a mom, right? And you're at home with kids. It's really about embodying this in a way that is right and aligned for you in this moment. So that's it. That's all. That's what I wanted to share. I will be really interested to hear to hear from myself, to notice how I'm feeling tomorrow. Because today felt like, honestly, recording this podcast, it's now 4:30. This is like the pinnacle of the day. It's like it all came together. And the funny thing is, when I picked John up from the library, I was like, hey, after this, I'm going to go get a cocktail at the hotel and then pick our dinner up. And that's when I got the nudge, was not to go to the cocktail bar first, but to record the podcast. And I was like, oh yeah, now it's time. My mind's like, wait, but we wanted to record the podcast earlier and get a cocktail now. And then inner voice was like, no, now's time for podcast. So this is the pinnacle of this day. And it also shows you and me is how many lessons are constantly in our realm, right? How even a simple day, right? It's a Monday. I'm on vacation in Buena Vista. It was a pretty mundane day, right? I could have ignored everything and just been like, well, this sucks. But instead, it took me on a journey to where I am now, recording this podcast. And now, with that being said, I am going to go get my cocktail and pick up some pizza and have a chill evening and go to bed and do it all again tomorrow. We'll see what tomorrow brings. So as always, thank you for tuning in, for listening. And next week, we have a very special guest, Elizabeth Ralph, the spiritual investor. And I am talking to her about scarcity and lack and how our relationship with money informs our relationship with wealth. She is so tuned in. She embodies wealth and abundance and has a truly spiritual relationship and understanding of money. I've had her on the podcast before. She's brilliant. So I'm so excited to talk to her about money. So if you have any questions that you want us to answer, feel free to send them to me on Instagram at Dana_Evans or shoot me an email to hello@alignful.com. But that is what we'll be talking about. So that is next week, and I can't wait to see you then. As always, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tuning In podcast. As always, if this would resonate with anyone you know, please share the episode. You can follow along with my journey on Instagram at Dana_Evans or find me on my website at alignful.com.